Hello, welcome to Reel Film Snobs. I'm Angela Yeager. Pleased to have with me on the show my friend Jimmy Wilder. Welcome to the show again, Jimmy.
Hi, Angela. Thank you for having me again.
Yeah, and we are talking about summer movies. Originally, we were going to do blockbusters, but Jimmy wanted to do a bunch of superhero movies, and I threw a fit. So we're not calling it blockbusters because some of these I don't think fit that description. But I think we can safely say these were all summer movies. So we just kind of picked I think it's actually a really good mix. We've
Mhm.
got a drama, a small chamber drama, a big screen epic, and an animated film and a horror film. So a little something for everyone this
Oh
episode.
yeah.
So I'll also kick us off with our first movie, which is The Invite by director Olivia Wilde. And Wilde stars in the movie as Angela, I'll get to that in a minute, who lives in a San Francisco apartment with her husband Joe, played by Seth Rogen. The whole film unfolds over a single evening. Their daughter is away at a sleepover, and Angela has invited their upstairs neighbor, Pina, played by the terrific Penelope Cruz, and her boyfriend Hawk, played by Edward Norton, over for wine and cheese and things go awry pretty quickly. The movie's getting some comparisons to films like Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf and others, because as things unfold, it turns out that Pina and her boyfriend have a different kind of lifestyle than the uptight Angela and her husband, whose marriage has become sort of, I guess you could say, problematic as the years have worn on. Joe is kind of a failed musician who teaches, he teaches music at a lesser regarded conservatory, and Angela has an art degree that she doesn't use other than to constantly redesign their apartment and move rugs around. So the whole movie is these four actors, really, and it's the kind of movie I was a little worried going into it at the beginning because it's not my favorite genre, and it is its
Mhm.
own genre at this point of people just yelling at each other, couples marriage coming apart for that reason. Even though Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, for instance, is a classic, it's a hard for a movie for me to watch because it's just really hard to just watch a marriage disintegrating in front of your eyes. And so I was worried at the beginning because Joe and Angela are fighting right away. But the film does liven up once Penelope Cruz and Edward Norton enter the picture, and things become a little funnier, a little looser, or a lot looser as it goes on, and things start to happen. I enjoyed all four of the performances in this movie. This movie's getting just like tremendous reviews. Like critics are falling all over themselves for it. I don't know if it quite, in my book, lives up to that. I feel like towards the end it sort of falls apart as the actual invite, or becomes unveiled. The film kind of starts to hedge its bets a little bit. Also, I feel like the guys here have a little bit better of a deal. I mean, they're like, "Oh, I have to choose between sleeping with Olivia Wilde or Penelope Cruz." This is not a this is not a difficult situation for these guys to find themselves in. I'm like, Seth Rogen is like a miserable character, and I'm like, you live in this like gorgeous apartment in San Francisco.
Mhm.
You teach music. You're married to Olivia Wilde, and Penelope Cruz is sort of interested in you. What exactly is the problem again with your life?
Right.
But I'm really curious what you thought of this, Jimmy, because I was actually surprised when you mentioned this and you said, "Oh, we can substitute, like Supergirl for this one," and I was like, "Gladly," but I was a little surprised because this doesn't seem like, I don't know. I guess I shouldn't, stereotype your taste, but it didn't seem like the kind of movie you would run out to see.
So the funny thing with me is that a lot of times, well, not a lot of times, but sometimes I will just pick a movie and without knowing anything about it,
Mm.
and just say, That's what we're going to go see. Let's just try something different." And one time we did it when we saw A Simple Favor. and that turned out to be one of our favorite movies. So this time I said, let's go see The Invite. I don't know anything about it. Let's go see it. And walking into it and hearing, the bickering and the anger between the couple of Joe and Angela, it was like, ooh, did I pick the wrong? This isn't a great date night movie.
Yeah, exactly.
um, but the humor in it balances it out. And I think everything comes around in the end, and the juxtaposition between Angela and Joe's relationship and Pina and Hawks. It's interesting, to see like the Angela and Joe are at their wits' end, and neither one really wants to still be in this relationship, and it's a lot of self-loathing, not feeling seen, not feeling heard, feeling like you're in a dead end job and things like that. And Pina and Hawk seem like they're just loving life, doing what they want to do, being with who they want to be with,
Yeah.
and just enjoying things, and seeing them come together. Some of that uh, some of that misery in Joe and Angela kind of rubs off into Pina and Hawk a little bit, and they get into an argument. But then some of that joy from Pina and Hawk rubs off on Joe and Angela. So it was just interesting to see that the way they played that out.
Yeah, and it's all actors I really enjoy. It's refreshing to see Penelope Cruz in particular. I've loved her forever, and usually her better roles have been in Spanish language films. And she finally, she gets a fairly meaty role here. I was worried at the beginning, like, oh, she's just going to be kind of like the Spanish sex pot vixen, because that's how she often gets cast in American movies. But her character ends up being, I feel like, towards the end, like the only one who really knows who she is. Even
Mm-hmm.
Hawk's a little bit of an imposter. I mean, they kind of bring up like, oh, Seth Rogen has this great scene where he's like, Hawk, what kind of name is that for a guy? That's not your real name. And yeah, no, it's not. And so, but I think all the actors just really, you could just tell they're just enjoying the material and getting to sink their teeth into this material. I did have to say, like, Olivia Wilde's character, of course, she's gorgeous, but like her, yeah, when her character's name is Angela, she's really uptight. Like she was driving me crazy at the beginning. So I thought, oh boy, I could see why it would be a lot to live with this woman.
Oh yeah.
I mean, yeah, he's miserable, but also she's just like she's a lot. She's definitely a type A. Um, her whole thing with the charcuterie, platter and everything. But so I think it's definitely the kind of movie. It's no surprise me in a little bit that they released it in the summer because it almost seems like an Oscar bait movie with these kinds of performances. But I did
Mm-hmm.
enjoy it. I thought the score was really interesting. It's like a very kind of almost over the top, impactful score by, and I can't remember his real name, but it goes by Blood Orange as his music name. But yeah, I thought it was a really interesting score, and it's interesting to just have a movie set in essentially one room or in one apartment. And so
Mm-hmm.
you start to feel a little claustrophobic with these people after a while. Luckily, it's
Yeah.
a very large apartment, but in San Francisco. Again, I'm bringing that up because it's like, okay, this is a very nice place you're living in.
Very nice.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I can recommend it, especially I think for the performances and for these actors.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I recommend it as well. It was very interesting, and I enjoyed it. The
that's
performances.
good because you saw it with your wife too, right?
Yes.
Like you did,
Yeah.
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 Like you said. I thought about that because I noticed in the theater a lot of couples, and I thought, oh, this would be a really weird one to see.
Yeah.
Probably okay if you've been together a while, like you and Tracy,
Right.
but like if
Yeah.
you went on a first date on this, man, that would be a tough night.
There was a lot of nervous laughter I heard in the movie theater.
Yeah, I can imagine
Yeah.
that for sure, for sure. Okay, well, let's move on to the next one, which is yours to introduce, I think.
So the next movie does really hold up to the blockbuster title, The Odyssey. And of course, that is a movie based on the poem, the epic poem from Homer. So the Odyssey is the story of a king, the king of Ithaca, Odysseus, who's played by Matt Damon, and it talks about his perilous return home after the Trojan War, him crossing the sea with his crew and all the soldiers, and there's some. obstacles that they face on the way back, mythical creatures and such, and different things that the gods beset upon them. So uh, I don't really remember the book as much. I know I've read it multiple times and I've had classes on it, but it was. I thought about reading the book again before I went to watch it, but I thought, no, let me just go in fresh, and I wasn't disappointed. I think Christopher Nolan did a great job. I've been hearing a lot in the press that about people getting fatigued from the CGI and the green screens and things like that. And I got to admit, it was refreshing to see something that was like filmed on location, no green screens. They use cinematography tricks to make things look different than they were. And I was like, this is really cool. Um, I think that he hit it out of the park on this one. It's probably the best time I've had in a movie in a long time.
Hmm.
I did see it in IMAX, and we got our tickets late, and so we were really far back in the back at the very top, and man, right next to those speakers. So that was a little jarring, but I mean, you
Yeah.
could actually feel it. It was a great movie though.
Yeah. Were
Uh,
you feeling like the seats shaking and everything since you
oh
saw?
yeah,
Oh,
oh yeah.
interesting.
It was yeah.
Well, and it's interesting because we were talking right before the taping about there's very few theaters in the country. So Christopher Nolan, for those who are not nerding out on technical aspects of film, shot this in 70 millimeter IMAX. And there's very few theaters in the country that can actually show both 70 millimeter and IMAX. There's none in Oregon that
Hmm.
I'm aware of. So you have to usually, most people in the country, if they're even lucky to be near one of those, can have to choose between the two. So you and I chose different paths. So you saw it in IMAX. I saw it at
Hmm.
the Independent Hollywood Theater in Portland, where they still show 70 millimeter film, but
Hmm.
it was not IMAX, so it was very interesting,
Yeah.
juxtaposition. And of course, I love seeing things on actual film, the way God intended, as I like to joke. But yeah, I did not love this movie, I have to say, and I'm probably in the minority there in terms of the whole country because everyone's going crazy for this movie. There's been lots of versions of the Odyssey over the years. One of my, of
Hmm.
course, favorites is the cheesy '70s version with the stop motion animation.
Hmm.
Creatures called Clash of the Titans. Obviously, this is not that kind of version. This is a much more serious version. And I think all the actors do a good job. I think Matt Damon as Odysseus is great. I think, I still have an issue. I think Christopher Nolan, this movie is a little bit better than Oppenheimer in terms of the female characters, but he tends to underwrite female characters. I felt like, for instance, Lupita Nyong'o's character of Helen of Troy, she just
Hmm.
appears for like 5 minutes and is gone. Some of the set pieces are really great. I thought my favorite was Cersei, the witch who, turns his men into pigs. Sorry if that's a
Yeah.
spoiler, but it's a pretty, if you haven't read the Odyssey by now, I'm sorry, but it's some of these are very familiar, whether it's the
Yeah.
Trojan horse going into Troy, Cersei the witch. Of course, you have the Cyclops. Again, with the choices these guys have in these movies, he ends up, of course, Odysseus famously ends up on an island with the character of, oh, I'm going to forget her name, of course, right at this moment, but
Calypso.
yeah, Calypso, played by Charlize Theron. So it's like, oh, do I stay on the island with Charlize Theron or go home to Anne Hathaway? Oh, the choices you have to make in life for these guys. My biggest issue with it, Jimmy, and it's interesting that
Hmm.
you had such a great time. So maybe I should have seen it in IMAX, and I would have. I mean, I saw it in a packed theater; it was sold out,
Hmm.
yeah, packed to the gills. Is I just felt like it lacked a sense of wonder. Like the Odyssey, it's supposed to be this fantastical. The Greeks, the ancient Greeks believed in the gods, Zeus, Athena,
Hmm.
etc. And while they talk a lot about the gods in the movie, it's very much, I feel like this current version is very much set and it has a modern feeling to it in that Odysseus, rather than really, feeling the Greek gods or feeling their presence in his life, is very much a modern character in that
Hmm.
he's beleaguered by all this guilt he feels over the things he's done. And and in a way, I feel like Christopher Nolan is speaking, and when he talks about the dark ages coming, of our
Hmm.
own time a little bit, and then maybe that we're in the dark ages right now, and so there's some definitely some political aspects to these
Hmm.
things that we're doing right now, and how future generations will judge those actions. Whereas for the actual Greeks at this time, and something I think previous versions of this story have felt, is the gods felt very real to them in a
Right.
way that I don't feel like they feel in this movie. The only god who is represented really is Athena, and even that he kind of pulls, which I don't want to give away anything for those who haven't seen it, but he kind of pulls the rug out even on that character towards the end.
Right.
She's played by Zendaya, so I feel like I just wanted more of the fantasy aspect to come out. And it is a 3 hour movie. I will say the pacing, I mean, it doesn't feel 3 hours in terms of you're not bored at any aspect. So I will give it
Hmm.
that. But you sounds like you had a really good time.
Yeah, it was different. I did miss the aspect of actually seeing the gods and hearing them actually speak and like in the book and in other versions of the story. But it's like I kind of got the feel like what Odysseus was going through. Part of it was talking about that it was the end of that age of the way man viewed the gods. They didn't
Hmm.
see them as the same way. I mean, but by seeing all these wondrous things that are happening in the movie, it lets you know that they are still present. Like the gods are there. All the things that are happening to you are proof that the gods are there. So it was interesting to see it put that way.
Hmm.
And yeah, like you said, a lot of the themes and a lot of the characters, you know about them from other things. Like I've been watching Percy Jackson with my grandson, and it's like,
Mm.
then I'll go see the Odyssey, and they're like, oh yeah, I forgot that this character was in that, and this is from that, and so seeing that the Odyssey has influenced a lot of the movie making and television shows
Oh
that
yeah,
we've
big
watched.
time. I mean, there's so many characters that are so, even if you don't know them by name, you know the
Hmm.
story.
Yeah.
But like I was disappointed, like the siren scene was interesting to handle, but you don't
Yeah.
really like actually see them except for very, very far away. And
Right.
um, yeah, it was an interesting, I mean, he definitely didn't want to show the sirens in the way they're usually portrayed, right? Which is these
Hmm.
women that men cannot resist, and the
Hmm.
song of the sirens. Instead, they turn it more into like a psychological test, which again, I think he's more interested in the interior of the characters in that way than the fantastical elements of the story. I just wanted there to be a little bit more awe and wonder. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
it was an interesting. It's interesting that it's doing so well and that people are just. I mean, that there's lines for this movie and that people are so excited. And I, as a movie person, I love that aspect of it.
Hmm.
You saw it in like really late at night too, and you
Oh
managed to stay
yeah.
awake.
Yeah, like I said, sitting up. So we were at the very back. We got our tickets late. We got our tickets the day of, and I scrambled and I chose to take a risk with sitting in the seats for the handicap seats where they have an accompanying seat. And I knew full well that if somebody needed those seats, I had to leave. But I rolled the dice, and they weren't in need. So, but I'm like all the way in the back at the very top, and so the vantage point as far as viewing the screen was perfect. The speakers though were right behind us and to the side, and so it was very loud. So there was no way I was falling asleep. It
Right.
was it
You'd have to
was.
be extremely tired to fall
Oh
asleep
yeah,
at that volume. Yeah, Christopher Nolan does not generally make quiet movies, although some of the conversation was a little quiet, I thought. Again, I didn't see
yeah,
it in IMAX though, so it's a very different experience. We'd have to go to LA to see it in IMAX and 70 millimeter, I
oh
think,
yeah,
at the same time. So,
yeah.
okay, well, let's move on to our next one, which I think is also yours to introduce. Very, very different movie.
So the next movie is Toy Story 5. And this is picking up. I don't know how much further in along in the story this picks up, but you have your same group of all the characters with Buzz, Woody, and Jesse. Although they're living in separate places. in the home that Buzz and Jesse live in, the child there gets a new toy, a lily pad. So it's bringing the technology into the life of this child, and it changes the dynamic of how that child plays now. So um, it's really timely. Like it it really painted a picture of how our world is right now with the way kids play, how they interact with each other, how they are distracted and not paying attention to things like that. I mean, it was really interesting to see the way that played out. I got to admit that when I was listening to the actors in the very beginning, some of them I thought were people trying to mimic the voices of those characters. I didn't know that Joan Cusack reprised her role
Hmm.
because to me it sounded like somebody trying to do the voice that she did.
No, she's just
And
20 years older now.
yeah, exactly.
We're just
And I thought, I
old.
was like, are these the same actors? And I got back home and I looked it up, and of course, yeah, they were. So that was interesting to me. But yeah, all in all, I thought it was a good movie. I went with my grandson. He'd been bugging us all summer to see it. So of course, he had to watch the four previous movies before.
Oh,
So
so you got so you got the full Toy Story.
yes.
Yeah, that's funny because I did not rewatch everything, and I had kind of forgotten what had happened in the fourth. And then when it
Hmm.
started off, I'm like, oh yeah, Woody is like off, like not a child, not at a child's
Hmm.
home anymore. He had decided he was tired of having his heart broken. I'd forgotten that had happened in the fourth. So did your
Right.
grandson like it?
Oh yeah, he loved it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, he loved it. He still doesn't get when I tease him about being on his iPad or on his phone and all these things that I bring up lines from the movie, and he doesn't get it. So it's going
Really? He
right
didn't
over his
get the
head.
point, was like, oh,
Yeah, right over his head. So
the adults probably definitely got it. I mean, I have to say, you said it was timely, but I felt, well, maybe we needed it like 10 years earlier, actually, because I think, unfortunately, when I'm out and about
yeah,
and I just see these kids on their devices constantly, fairly depressing. And the movie definitely has that feeling of like
yeah.
the sense of wonder and specifically the idea of play. You and I grew up in a generation of like we didn't have a choice. Like there was just you played with your toys. You didn't I didn't have
Hmm.
screens,
Right.
to be on constantly or access to that kind of
Hmm.
information all the time. And
Right.
so you had to play and make things with your imagination. So it made me sad in a way. I was really glad they brought Jessie the cowgirl back because she was one of my favorite characters from the first two, and then she disappeared for the third and the fourth. And she's more of the focal point this time than Buzz and Woody, which
Hmm.
I liked. Although I missed some of the other characters, like Mr. Potato Head was barely
Oh
in
yeah.
this one, and some of the other favorite characters. Forky, I was actually okay about Forky. He gets kind of annoying, but yeah, I think I saw it at the point where there was hardly any. It's been out for so long that there was hardly anybody in the theater when I saw it.
Hmm.
So, but there was one family in the theater, and the kids seemed to be enjoying it, and I did enjoy it. This has been a pretty reliable series overall. So,
Oh yeah, yeah. It
whether
has been.
kids, like you said, will get the message or not, or the parents even, I don't know. That's a
Yeah.
whole other issue. So. Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, I can recommend it, though. I did enjoy it. We'll move on to our next movie, which is Obsession by director Curry Barker. It's sort of like the opposite of the Odyssey in a way, in that this was a very low budget movie, but that also hit big. It was made for $750,000 and then just took off like crazy. The
Hmm.
film follows Bear, played by Michael Johnston, a music store employee who buys a supernatural toy that grants him a wish. And he makes a wish that his friend Nikki uh, will fall in love with him. Not just fall in love with him, he specifically says, will love him more than anything else in the world. And guess what? His wish comes true. And it makes
Hmm.
her completely obsessed with him. And this is one of those be careful what you wish for movies, the old monkey's paw um, type of story, which has been done before. This is not a new idea, especially in
Hmm.
horror movies. Now, this one has gotten a lot of buzz, and people are really falling on different divides of this movie. I think you probably liked it better than me, and I think that will be interesting to talk about. I had a lot of issues with this movie, and I think there's been a lot made of the whole kind of the gender dynamics and the fact that Bear
Hmm.
makes this wish to turn this woman into something she's not, which is not interested in her romantically. She is his friend, but it's very clear at the beginning of the movie that she's not interested in him any more than a friend. But then he
Hmm.
wishes for her to be interested in him more than that, and then his wish comes true. And basically, she kind of becomes psycho and then becomes every guy's worst nightmare.
Yeah.
So the problems for me with this film, it's very interesting. To me, you can tell it was made for 750,000. It doesn't look very good. It's very flat looking. I
Right.
like a horror movie that has some like use of shadows or some grain to it. It's very flat looking. The actors overall are not great, other than I think Indy Navarrete, who plays Nikki. I think she actually does a really good job. Some
Hmm.
aspects are funny to me. I actually found myself, I went saw with a friend of mine and we were laughing a lot, which maybe was annoying people around us. But some of those weird things, like when she's just watching him in his room while he
Hmm.
sleeps, we were laughing. And maybe we weren't supposed to be, but I didn't find it very scary. I found it rather unintentionally funny in parts. But did you find it scary?
A little bit. It's interesting you didn't talk about the shadows. I thought that not really seeing her and wondering was she there in the shadows, and then she steps out, and it's like it freaked me out a little bit. It's
Yeah,
like just that whole thought of somebody's in the room or somebody's not where you expect them to be,
right.
and then of course she was where you didn't expect her to be. That was kind of scary, but the dialogue, like what she was saying, when the weird, creepy things. That was a little more funny than scary. Uh, yeah, it was off-putting.
Yes.
It's, yeah.
Well, and one of my issues, so the thing with horror movies, and I know you and I both have a love of horror movies, we both grew up watching them, is that horror movies need to, my opinion is that they need to at least follow their own logic. And in the case
Hmm.
of this movie, the logic is that he made a wish that she would love him more than anything else in the world, and that her behavior then should follow that. So some of the stuff, like watching him or being upset when he goes out with his friends, all of that stuff made sense with the logic of the film.
Hmm.
But some other things that she does in the film, and I don't want to give this away for people that haven't seen it yet, but it's like she does some other things that are just really disgusting, quite honestly.
Hmm.
The thing with the cat, for instance. That
Yeah.
doesn't that's just there to gross people out. It doesn't actually make any sense with the character's motivations. Why would you do that if you wanted someone to love you more than anything? And
See
so
now,
it
with
bothered me.
with that. Now, I'm not going to say, what she did, but yeah, like with the thing with the cat, I was thinking that we were seeing a little bit of the real character coming back, the real
Interesting.
Nikki. And this was her rebelling against what he had done to her, like her fighting
Interesting.
back. That's the way I saw it.
Interesting. Yeah, so that's a good point because yeah, it wouldn't make sense, right? If you were thinking
Right,
about it as a thing you would do if you loved someone. So
right,
there
right.
were aspects of that. I do again like to see the fact that it's bringing people out to the theaters and especially younger people who are coming out for that. So all of that is really good. So if you had to pick one movie out of the four we talked about today, what's your big recommendation?
It's got to be the Odyssey.
The Odyssey
Uh,
for you. Okay.
like, yeah, it was so refreshing, like seeing the way that was shot, and it just felt big, and not. I don't think it was just because it was an IMAX. It just felt like a grand story.
Right.
Like it was made for seeing
For
at the movie
theater, and
theaters.
that
Yeah,
that I do appreciate about it. It felt like he's like, you can't see this. If someone says I'm waiting for streaming on that one, you're like, no, no,
no, yeah,
you have to see it in the theater. If you're
yeah.
really going to experience it, you have to experience it in the theater. So I do agree with you on that, Jimmy. And thanks
Hmm.
as always for being on the show. Appreciate you. We're out of time. As always, have a great day and great movies.